You're listening to Frontier Matters, the podcast from 1914 Reader. Join us as we dive into bold conversations on growth and change in the frontier economies of the world.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Frontier Matters. Today you have the pleasure of just Tobi and I. And we thought we will catch up today on some of the issues we've discussed since the last time we had a chat. I think the last time we had just two of us was a live we had on Substack on October 1st where we talked about Nigeria. So it's been a month, I guess. Obviously in that time we've had a couple of guests on the podcast and we've written quite a number of articles and generated a bit of discussion, which is what this is why we're doing this anyway. So yeah, Tobi, how's it going? How are you?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. So it's we are recording this on a Monday, and I have to say that despite the traffic situation in Lagos on a Monday, blah blah blah, and everything, I had to do some extra emergency shopping in case Donald Trump invades.
Like the silly jokes that people on Twitter are making that in case he drops a bomb or Bagada, well, I'm thinking it was Gwagwalada or something,
Yeah, so I like our friend Ross has been going on Instagram, so I had to buy power bank, torchlight, some bottled water, eggs, ridiculous.
I think it's quite interesting because, I've been discussing the reactions of Nigerian leaders, politicians online and everything to this whole thing. And something struck me that, first of all, they don't seem to understand that you are dealing with a new kind of American, basically, a brash American who doesn't really care. I mean, these guys, they're happy to weaponize American power and they're going to let you know that America is a strong country, the biggest empire the world has ever seen. So, we're not going to be polite about it, basically. So that's the first bit. But second of all, this has never happened to Nigeria before. It is uncharted territory for a lot of our leaders in the sense that you have the most powerful country in the world pretty much threatening to, use military force on Nigeria. I mean, they don't know how to react to it. So you can see all kinds of mixed messaging and all that kind of stuff. So, for example, somewhere like Rabiu Musa Kwakwaso, he came out with a long tweet and everything. And then you get the U.S. representative who Donald Trump has directed to handle this matter, is replying him that, look, aren't you the guy who was prosecuting people for blasphemy and Sharia law and all that kind of thing? And you can think that Kwankwaso has walked into almost kind of like a trap there, essentially, because almost certainly he's going to get some kind of sanction or something. He's basically made himself a visible figure. And, to Americans, so the guy has quote tweeted him and he's got thousands of retweets and everything. And all of a sudden, everyone now knows that Kwankwaso is the guy who had Sharia law while he was a governor and where blasphemy was an offense and that sort of thing. So it's really an interesting and uncharted territory where these guys don't really know how to react. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to do that all of a sudden. And, it's also a story of, unfortunately, Nigerian decline over the past 2 decades. I mean, in 2004, if someone threw a dynamite in the Niger Delta at an oil installation, all prices globally will start shaking. There'll be a reaction. If they kidnap one person in the Niger Delta, there'll be a spike in oil prices or something. It'll be front page news. Now, nobody cares. Nigeria has 1.5 million barrels of oil per day. If the whole thing disappears from the market, nobody cares.
Yeah, and I think we made that point on one particular episode that, basically if our output disappears from the market, nobody cares.
Yeah. Saudi Arabia can pump it easily. Russia can pump it easily. And, even China or somebody, so it's quite a story about, democracy has kind of like the tragedy being that democracy has led Nigeria here over the last 2 decades and some, where the country has lost its global standing and clout. I remember remarking in 2023, in the run-up to the Nigerian election, and it was just amazing how there was practically no coverage, no interest. So I mean, I'm looking at the UK papers here, for example. Like, there was just no interest, nothing. Like, oh yeah, okay, some country in West Africa, oh, okay, they're having an election. Oh, I see. Okay, as long as they don't start killing each other and they don't start, you can do whatever you like, and then at the end of the election, the results was announced, and yeah, okay, some guy won, and that's it. Move on. It was, so it's quite a story, and then you now find yourself in this position whereby you have no international cloud per se, and then the president of the United States is threatening that he could drop something on the country, and our leaders are just scrambling around. They don't know what to say. They're trying to put out a conciliatory message while some people in another part of uh, you know, telling themselves stories about how actually it's because of the refinery, Dangote's refinery or something, that the Americans are unhappy or something, and they want to. And I'm just like, yeah, I think this country is going through a crisis of understanding, right?
Mm.
Like, what is Nigeria's place in the world today? Right? What is the country's strategic position? What is country's leverage? What is the country selling to the world? What is the country, what would the world miss about Nigeria? And that's a question that is kind of like really not easy to answer for anybody, including the
Yeah, yeah. I think two things, because I mean, obviously, like you have been having different conversations. Evidently, I'm not on Twitter, so thankfully, different conversations with people, and the decline you made. It's been years coming, right? But this is something that I think is almost solely on Buhari, because in the 21st century, let's just say, it's amazing that for 8 years we made economic self-sabotage a strategic, deliberate policy.
yeah.
I mean, that's a highway to irrelevance right there, because
Nobody
the
made us
world,
close. Nobody made us close borders. We did it ourselves.
yeah, because the world is always going to move on without you. I mean, you either choose to participate or not. I mean, the wheels will keep turning anyway. But the second thing that has really, really stood out to me, and I mean, this made me go back to the 90s, all the whole agitation for democracy. And I was telling someone yesterday that what I found amazing, and it still amazes me about the so-called civil society, when people fight for this and that, is that, like, for years, people were saying we want democracy, even when IBB was. But nobody in the civic space, at least not to my knowledge, thought in a serious way about what kind of country do we want to be if this democratic project, becomes. We still left the hard part to the military, which is your constitution. We still left, like, they left the hard part too. So everything we are seeing playing out, the mixed messaging, the struggle for response, apart from the obvious incompetence, I mean, there's no diplomatic representation in Washington. That's
Yeah.
shockingly incompetent,
Yeah.
But apart from the sheer incompetence of that, what is Nigeria? Nigeria, again, you've written about this, you can relate. With all our diversity, we had all the makings of actually being a truly plural melting pot of a state. But we chose, for some reason, to be this aggressively bi-religious theocracy, such that religious identity is always going to be an issue, whether it in public life or legally. It's something, and it calls for reflection. And I think right now, much like it was in 2015, even though 2015 was economic, who leads during a crisis matters, and that is what's going to shape the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And currently, I just don't think we have the leadership to cut it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, the president has been in office for 2 years. Tinubu has been president for 2 years, and he has not seen fit to appoint ambassadors, right? I mean, okay, even if you could not, you can't appoint all of them, but the US, UK, maybe France, or even China or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe just pick the 5 or 10 that are really strategically important and then put people there. But he's just not done it. And like I mean, with Washington, for example, when you think about the fact that the last ambassador we had was the guy Buhari put there, this Justice Nsofo, who basically it was a reward for him because he was the only justice on the Supreme Court when Buhari took one of his losing cases to the Supreme Court. He was the only justice who actually wrote in his favor, to award him I think it was the 2007 election. And, he repaid the guy with an ambassadorship to Washington when he was 82. The man was already 82 or something by the time he got it. He didn't do anything there. So when you consider those 3 years, I think he appointed him 2015 or something. It means that, for the best part of 10 years, Nigeria has not had any diplomatic representation in Washington. The world is not going to stop, like you said. It's not going to stop and say, oh, these people don't have sort of, nature abhors a diplomatic vacuum. So
Mm-hmm.
in the time when you are not there speaking for yourself, other people are talking, other people are lobbying, other people are doing all kinds of stuff. And, here we are, you are now almost at a crisis, like you said, we're in a crisis situation and just nobody knows what to do. Nobody knows what to say. Everyone's just scrambling around. Everything is shifting between bombastic and contrition. I saw the Nigerian presidency put out a tweet today and he had some like infographics on it and they said one nation, one plural nation, blah, blah, blah. We have multi-faith and all that kind of thing. And then for some reason, they decided to put in some kind of statistical whatever. So basically, it says that by estimates, or something on Pew Research estimates, Nigeria is today 51% Muslim, 48% Christian, 3% traditional, and all that kind of thing. And then they included a projection out to 2050 with the exact same statistics, right? So basically, today, 51% Muslim, 48% Christian. In 2050, it is expected that it is exactly the same thing. And I just thought to myself that this is the stupid stuff we do with censuses, right?
Yeah, I was just
So,
gonna say, yeah.
exactly, where basically we carry one census from one census to the other, and we maintain the exact same percentages across every state. So we're doing this stupid stuff again, and I'm like, not even the threat of Donald Trump, dropping bombs on Nigeria can actually make us suspend this foolishness
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we
yeah.
do,
Yeah.
right? Like, because I mean, honestly, we are a diverse nation. We have multiple. You don't need anything more than that. Why would you have to then start adding, quote unquote data? And people just look at us. So I don't know. I don't know where this ends. It probably. I mean, I don't think anybody really takes it that serious. Nobody thinks that Donald Trump is not going to risk. I mean, a strand of hair of an American soldier on Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
We are only concerned. We are only as concerned for as long as he's not distracted by something else. So probably, I mean, it moves on and nobody cares. But I think the key lesson for me is that we have gone from a country where a small issue in a small part of the country in the Niger Delta would have global repercussions or ramifications around the world to someone where, you can actually now threaten military action with fully confident that nothing is going to happen. Like, I mean, if America does military action on Nigeria, maybe they send some jets to go and bomb somewhere in the north or something, or Sambisa forest or whatever, nothing is going to happen. I mean, who's going to rise up in Nigeria's defense and say, oh, no, you should not have done this or something? Or, I mean, even Nigerians themselves, are they going to actually fight and try to do this? So it's a real story of loss of status. And, to your point about when democracy came, we did not really have any definition for what it was. And we've now been led here where we don't really know what we are. We're in a crisis of meaning as a country right now,
Yep.
where
Yep.
nobody really knows what we are, and why we are, or whatever, or where we are going or something. Yeah. So it's I've spent a lot of today thinking about it, and I've just really thought that, we need leadership. It
Yeah.
sounds obvious. It sounds more so.
True. I mean, and it's not. I've thought to think of Nigeria's situation beyond even the incentive. Even if we change the incentive of the current crop of guys, it's not going to work any miracles, man. We need radical, deep-rooted change. Like you said, it sounds cliched, it sounds obvious, but it goes a long way. I mean, all these guys we talk about, yeah, they had a team, they have people they work with, but everything usually coordinates around the vision, the drive, the brilliance of one person. I mean, we talk about Lee, we talk about Deng Xiaoping, and all these guys, and you just don't see a figure. I was telling somebody today that the only person, I mean, I'm happy to be wrong, the only person that I can think of, that I have the awareness of, that even tried to think about Nigeria and what kind of country we should be in terms of leadership, who's actually an elite, is our law. I mean, and it's there. The man wrote like a fiend, about his thoughts on the law, marriage, society, the constitution, the economy, name it. He was wrong about a lot of things, but I mean,
Of
like you
course.
said, he put words to paper, things that you can interrogate and critique and dissect. But I mean, other than political rallies and all these sub-psychotic rants of Wiki, what else do we have now?
I mean, they all still went to Bielsa today to go and welcome the Bielsa governor into APC. I mean, like, just fundamentally unserious, right? Like, fundamentally, nothing can stop the unseriousness, right?
Nothing.
So,
Nothing.
I mean, somebody has declared military action against you, it threatened you with military action, and you're still going to welcome the governor of a small state who's defecting to your party. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know what can kick us out of this stop or.
I think part of it is that they don't feel threatened, even though it's a threat,
Mhm.
but directly, they don't feel threatened. I mean, if these bombs are going to drop, it's not going to be on Aso Rock or in Maitama or in Ikoyi or wherever it is they've chosen to buy houses and, all these things. So it's still going to be I mean, like that old saying, the rich, I would say the powerful in the case of Nigeria, because having money in Nigeria doesn't necessarily buy you anything. Uh, the rich do what they want, the poor suffer what they
So
must.
far with the most, yeah. Oh well, it's. I mean, it's what it is, and I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, yeah, let's talk. So obviously that was an emergency topic. I mean, this was also if we were planning to talk about this 4 days ago, this would not have been what would have opened it. But this is Nigeria for you. Anyway, so I want to talk about food and all the stuff we've been doing, and I think it's been quite interesting that
you've been on a roll, you've been on fire, I must say.
Yeah, so like I think someone said, I can't remember where I read it, but someone said human beings don't react to data, they react to stories. So and I think that it's been a story in the sense that maybe you can sort of connect with what exactly is happening to you as a person, as a Nigerian, and how this policy is. So if you have a loaf of bread, you can connect with the fact that the wheat and the sugar that have gone into that are artificially raised in price by policy, by deliberate government policy, which it shouldn't be so, and which is not something that fell from heaven. Nigeria does not grow wheat. It is an insanity for a country like Nigeria to be putting high tariffs on wheat and all that sort of thing. There is no good reason why a country that has never grown wheat in any serious quantity will be doing that to itself. So that's just a policy thing that somebody has chosen. Same thing with the sugar, same thing with palm oil, same thing with, and so many other things that we've not even covered, that we didn't even, I mean, like rice, I mean, the 96% of rice imports to Nigeria are controlled by 3 companies.
Mm.
So again, you have this whole same scenario painting out there. So I think that it's important that you can tell people a story about what economic policy is actually doing in reality, not just what it says it's doing. So, there's a way you can present these stories, right? And say, oh, we are protecting infant industries, we want to grow our local economy, and we want to basically produce things locally instead of having to import them. And you can tell that story. And that story chimes with a lot of people. But then the way it actually plays out in reality, is very, very much different from that. And then Nigerians are just paying excessively high prices for things that there's no good reason why. There's no good reason why that should be happening. So I thought maybe that was I guess it was and then obviously you then get the whole story of, the ink has not even dried on some of the food stories we've written, and then you get this 15% 15% tax on imported food, which is a textbook story, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that, somebody has now managed to lobby policy and say, okay, let me raise the price of imports that will compete with me, raise it to an artificial level, and then I can then raise my own as well, my own prices as well, to match that artificial stuff, and then Nigerians get to pay, they get to pay more for it.
I think two things, and I mean, much like our readers have enjoyed that and learned so much from that series. I mean, well done. I don't know how you come up with this stuff, so I guess I'm still learning. So, two things really just stand out to me when I think about it. And again, not to put too fine a point on it, I think that it might not be exclusive to Nigeria, but I think we have some of the dumbest oligarchs in history. It's just like there's just no creativity. I don't know if it's the policy process itself. Like, you see how monopolists try these things. Maybe in Mexico, they try to be
Yeah.
very creative, but no, it's just blatant padlock and key, and it's just so silly. And secondly, the whole psychology of poverty and what people believe really, really play out when I see opinions of people.
Yeah, Joel Moke we're in Joel Moke territory again now,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what people
So
believe, yeah.
what people believe, and you can see clearly that Nigeria is a favor economy in the Pentecostal evangelical sense, where everybody is basically just waiting for their turn, which is statistically impossible, but you know, everybody wants to be like Dangote or $10 or blah blah blah, and it's just a like that popular meme that goes around now that if you reach your turn, do something. Like
Yeah,
you see
yeah.
things like, oh, if you reach your turn, innovate, and yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
and it just gives you a window into the collective psychology of the people itself and how years of this practice has really shaped, how people think. And I think the third thing I would add, which is quite really fundamental and personal for me, is that, for years, and I live and breathe this stuff. Economists like to think that, oh, development economics is different from, mainstream neoclassical economics, that, oh, so certain policies that works in advanced economies, rather, do not work in a development setting, blah, blah, blah. But I think that fundamentally, a government at whatever stage of development must always be on the side of your consumer. Producer welfare is bullshit.
Yep, yep, yep.
And that is what leads to this kind of things. And it goes to that, it might seem harsh, right? When you pair that with the hostility to commerce in a place like Nigeria and what businesses go through. But like, if you really, really drill down to fundamentals, it's not, because I mean, like, I've written about this, like that Douglas Irwin paper, say 3 simple principles of trade policy. Businesses are consumers too. So if you as a government is fundamentally on the side of your people, there will obviously be businesses too. Businesses buy things too. Businesses consume services from other businesses, right? So why I'm saying this is that if the Nigerian government sees its job as the welfare of my people comes first, right? It is welfare reducing for Nigerians to be buying rice, cement, sugar at X 5x x the global price, right? Then it would fundamentally change the orientation of policy around a lot of these things, infant industry or not, right? And I mean, the classic development story, you see it everywhere from Taiwan to South Korea, and you know, even at a much lower level of success, Indonesia and Malaysia, they don't put their people on the plate. Even
For
if they are
somebody
trying,
else.
yes, even if they are trying to help their businesses, that's why, this whole thing, these whole development stories sort of became about exports, right? You can subsidize your businesses, you can help them, you can make friendly policy for them to grow large and become, global export giants. But there was never a time where the population is on the menu, which is essentially what we have in Nigeria. So, and I think you've done amazing job exposing the raw underbelly of that. And I think for me personally, especially given what I see, what people comment, I mean, I'm not going to concern myself with some random idiotic PhD holder from NESG or from, I mean, it's a shitty organization anyway. So, but if somebody that is suffering also is hoping that one day, his hope out of that is that it will reach my turn. I can become like Dangote. I can become like Otedola. Then, like we discussed earlier today, we need serious intellectual revolution.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a starting point, like you said, why is the relationship between government and the people so antagonistic? Right? I don't know what it is. There's something in our history somewhere that has gone on for so long. But why is it that, the government does not think twice, like you said, putting Nigerians on the plate for a handful of businesses? This is something that in other countries, the government would think so hard and deep before he ever tries it. In fact, he might lie about it, but it will not be so obvious. But it's just something just done flippantly here, and to your first point about just a complete failure of imagination. Here, look at Dangote Cement, right? This company has been protected for 2 decades. Right. So we've had this cement policy for the best part of 2 decades. As of today, bag cement is still banned. Is actually banned in Nigeria.
Mhm,
Bag
mhm.
cement is banned. Clinker has a 50% tariff on it as of today. And this is two decades after the cement policy. These companies have made billions of dollars in profits.
Yep.
Right? They've had pioneer taxes, they've had all kinds of things for 2 decades. And what do you get? In the latest Dangote results, I mean, it's just a complete failure of imagination that you sold the same amount of cement from 1 year to the next, and you managed to raise your revenues by almost 50%. Like you just put up prices. It's just there is nothing interesting, complicated, innovative, nothing going on. It's just this is what you're still doing, 2 decades after. And I keep telling people, I argue in some groups, I said, like, look, after 2 decades of this policy, this cement policy, we should now be at the point where we are discussing the things you can do with cement. I shared a paper recently with someone, and I was quite surprised that there was a World Bank paper that shows just the impact of cement flooring for poor people. So it raised welfare, reduced disease, increased happiness, all kinds of. I mean, it was the results were spectacular, and this is just basically cementing people's flaws. So making sure that kids, they are studying, improved, all that kind of stuff. I mean, these are the things you can do with cement, right? And, when I wrote the other previous pieces, I talk about how, there are so many, there's just so much mud housing still going on in a lot of Nigeria. So, whenever it rains or there's some bad weather, it just washes a lot of stuff away. And yet, here is a country that has produced billions of dollars in profits for cement. So where is cement is an input, right? Nobody is drinking it. It's a means to achieve other stuff. So after 2 decades of this policy, can Nigeria not now begin to move to a discussion of say, okay, we've done all of this, we've produced the cement, we've built up the capacity and all that. Okay, now we want to start putting this cement into you know, human lives in Nigeria, saying, okay, what are the ways in which cement can improve the lives of Nigerians? Better roads, better housing, more affordable housing, more or any kind of stuff. That is the point we should be by now. But instead, where are we? Somebody's just putting up prices, just raising prices just at will. Without even producing more cement. So again, it comes back to that point where, in the sense that the government is sitting down watching all of this, and it does not feel that it needs to stand up and say, "No, enough of this. Let me take the side of the consumer." Nobody fights for the government. It's just no the relationship between the government and consumer is almost kind of like they're enemies.
Yeah,
They're on opposite sides of something.
yeah. Again, it's a cliche, but you have to ask, what is the social contract between the Nigerian people and the government? I think it was this FT guy, I forgot his name, David Peeling. Yeah.
David Biden,
Yeah, that wrote a piece, I think 2 or 3 years ago now, and he had one line that I think perfect. That's what I think about when I see all this revenue stuff, and the stupid, ridiculous tax reform and whatever. That the Nigerian government exists to fund itself. Nothing. That's it. Essentially, that's it. Like, there's nothing binds the Nigerian government to the people. Okay, so let's draw some parallels. I haven't paid attention for a while, but I've been watching this Mamdani guy lately, and you could see the parallels. Okay, Trump obviously came with MAGA, is a sensation, but today people will say all kinds of things about MAGA, which is true. Anyways, it's divisive, the anti-trade, anti-immigration, or racist, white supremacy, whatever, right? But the main selling point for MAGA is the economy, which is this economy is screwing you and China is to blame, and I'm the guy that's going to fix it. The same thing, I mean, people made Mamdani's campaign so much about his identity, or Israel, Palestine, blah, blah, blah. But the main thing that I see that's a consistent theme, again, as a selling point, as something for people to get behind, regardless
Cost of
of your
living.
disagreement, it's cost of living. As ridiculous as his policy propositions are, I'm going to lower the rent in New York City, and billionaires are going to pay for it.
Yeah, that's music to people's ears. It's something they feel. Yeah.
Exactly. For the past 2 years, and again, if you add Buhari's 8 years, that makes it 10 years, the most consistent story in terms of something that causes actual pain, other than insecurity, which is the kidnapping, the banditry, and all the killings that are going on, is the economy. The poverty was rapid. It was industrial scale. The impoverishing of Nigerians. But 2 years from now, we're going to have an election. The biggest story about that election is not going to be the economy. It is going to be identity.
Religion,
Religion and
North,
identity, where
South.
North,
Yeah.
South, Christian, Muslim, right? So I think that is the origin of our problem right there. The last election Trump won, people can be in their feelings one way or the other. But people that have been paying attention and really, really looking into the data will tell you that ultimately what it boiled down to and did the Democrats in was inflation.
Yep.
Because I was reading Kyla's Carlon's post, who's been going around America, both rural and some
Yeah, I enjoy.
high.
I haven't read her in a few weeks, but I enjoy her. I enjoy her
Yeah,
content. Yeah.
yeah, and what she said is that everywhere I go, it's the same story. The economy is the story. People don't know how to make sense of this economy, right? But I mean, I'm not making America's problem Nigeria's problem. But you see, Democrats, they are still obsessed with identity and autocracy and authoritarian or whatever that Trump is dangling in front of them. I'm not saying those are not serious issues, but I mean, when you just look at Nigeria, why can't the crushing everyday poverty, like you and I, we talk about these things all the time. I've been living and working in Lagos for 20 years, right? I see things. You see people, even me, I've been in some pretty difficult positions. What you see people ask you for is money, right? But in the last 3-4 years, people tell you, give me food. Like, if you don't trust me, if you think I'm going to go smoke with
Yeah.
it or I'm irresponsible, I don't care. I don't want the money. Just buy me food.
I mean, imagine
Give
debasing
me
a human
bread.
being in that way. Yeah.
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 Just give me bread. Literally, I still ran into somebody today. I went to buy some bananas and, an elderly man telling me, brother, I just want to eat. And it's not like this is rare. It's what you see. Lagos is the richest, biggest economy in the country. But this is what you see, even in the poshest, most ridiculously expensive neighborhoods in Lagos. This is like everyday life for some years now. But those same people come election discourse and all the idiots on Twitter who talk about which party, that party, or which candidate. Or what it still boils down to for them is whether it's a Christian or it's from the north or the south. And I think that diversity can become such a huge crutch on our polity is something that seriously needs looking at.
Yeah, we don't have any mechanism to improve the welfare of people because I mean, how are you going to talk about ethnicity, religion, and all that in a way that actually makes somebody richer? There's just no, there's no way. I mean, if you do a Christian Muslim ticket or a Muslim Muslim ticket or something, how is that? There is no mechanism by which that can actually improve the welfare of someone.
Yeah.
It is a feeling. Identity is important. People, they want to feel certain ways and all that. But in terms of the actual, like you said, the actual grinding, crushing poverty that we see in front of us, we don't talk about it, the ways to it, that we can address that. So, you said we're going to have an election. It will be about this whole politics with no end product. So the end product of Nigerian politics is more politics.
Yeah.
So maybe Tinubu will do some deals and all that kind of stuff to win, and then the next 4 years is owing more people, and then he has to do more politics and all that kind of stuff. So, but we've completely ignored and relegated the part of the thing that can actually make someone's life materially better, in the way that they feel. Like, bring down the prices of things, right? Make their income go further. Nigerians are spending 60% of their income on food. It just means that whatever else in the economy you want to have, right? Housing, clothing, automobiles, transport, everything needs to fit into that other 40% because people have to eat.
Yeah.
And it caps whatever else can happen. So if you cut down the cost of food for people, then you can begin to at least have a conversation on, other parts of the economy that are growing and improving the welfare of people. But we just don't have we don't have the language, we don't have the politics, we don't have the mechanism to actually talk about these things.
So I think there's a way that this, when I think about it, it is eerily hopeless. So, like this theory where there is obviously, I mean, and we saw this even in places like Shenzhen and Co, where China actually does practice some form of democracy, because that is what the population with the growing middle class demanded. They wanted. Of course, now we are rich, we have money, you can't just think you can boss us around, right? But you don't get that sense in Nigeria. And the poorer people get, the worse it's going to get. Like if you are in a situation where people are even getting mildly, steadily richer, you can say that you can get into some kind of virtuous cycle with that, where those same people then demand for good governance and good policies, and then they get some of those demands, it reinforces, and it keeps going. If you have, the truth is, there is no demand. So we talk about the supply side a lot. Government is not doing this. Nigerians don't know what a good society is.
Yeah.
They don't, and this thing does not discriminate about class or income or whatever. They do not. They see the outcomes, they admire it, right? But when it comes to their country, right, they are happy with anything. You know, in my neighborhood here, every time it rains, every time, clockworks, every time it rains, because of a tiny part of the stretch of the road, which is a major artery road that connects everywhere, there's poor drainage on a tiny part of the road that gets flooded. The whole neighborhood is gridlocked every time. And you see people, I mean, I see 2025, 2026 cars on that same road every day. You see people sit in that traffic for hours, and then the next day, nothing. Nobody in government, the local government, the planning office that is right here, that's like 2 minutes away from where the problem is. Nobody goes there, nobody complains, nobody does anything. Everybody just go about their business. Like, that's normal.
Yeah.
You know, and I just can't get around that. Like, you tell people, like, at the height of Buhari's nonsense, I recall seeing a trade paper where we were buying rice at 76,000 one particular year, like a bag of rice, 76,000 naira. I think it was 2018 or something like that. And rice gets to the border to Seme at 13,000 naira. So between Seme and Idu, you know, magically the price has
You just
more
layer all
than
kinds of
tripled. You know, and so a friend of a friend was saying it like, these are things that have actual, allegedly, I don't want anybody to harass me, but while this whole border closure thing, people, Nigerians in border communities who actually live on trade, people have died, people have lost homes. People get sexually molested by custom officers, allegedly, you know, just for, or based on the promise that, oh, you can pass, you know, without, and they still go ahead and seize their goods.
One of the things I mentioned during NSAS was how, you know, when NSAS was happening and then the protest started spreading outside Lagos and all that, you could see customization of the protest. So I was checking out, and I mentioned this at the time, I was looking at some hashtags of people in some areas in Ogun State, and you see they will say NSAS, end customs. You know, and the reason for this was because, you know, those communities had suffered, quote unquote, stray bullets from customs so many times, whereby, you know, customs will just go shooting. They will say they are chasing a rice smuggler and the bullet will hit an innocent person. I mean, there were, I posted so many of these stories. There were multiple, and I'm not talking one, two. There were several stories of, you know, customs officers allegedly chasing a rice smuggler, shooting in the air, shooting at the person, and then killing somebody. It happened so many times. In fact, there was one particular one that hit me so hard. it was school children. They were walking to school. A young boy, I don't know, maybe about 13 or something, or maybe a girl, actually. I think it was a girl. A young girl about 13 or something walking to school. And then a bullet just hit her and she died. The local ruler or something, he then had to, that one got so bad, the guy had to come out and talk to custom very publicly and say, look, we're tired of this stuff. Right? Every time you say you are chasing rice smugglers. And this was just something that people in a particular community, in a border community, just had to live with. Whereby, randomly, if it wasn't, it was actually, sometimes it was actually the car hitting in the high speed chase, the car actually hitting someone or something. And this was just, the customs guys just felt like this was a normal way to behave. That in the name of chasing rice smugglers, a random person walking on the street is just collateral damage to that, and it was just, a really, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's very, very tough
Yeah.
to deal with, very, very tough to accept and come to terms with the fact that actually these are things that nobody is doing to us. We are just doing it to ourselves. An external enemy is easy to focus on, and you can rally around and everyone can, suspend their differences and actually rally down and face that person. But then what are you going to do when it's government policy, is customs policy, is all this kind of stuff that is
Yeah.
actually doing this to you?
Yeah, and I mean, like I said in that piece I published on Independence Day, the way I see it, and I mean, part of why I love what we do, because I think we are at one node in that super important space, is we just need credible local intermediaries. Nobody's gonna speak for people. We just need institutionalization of the agitation for this stuff. Otherwise, it's going to end really badly. It's going to end in a riot or some kind of chaos. And we all know that with Nigeria's multiplicity of identity and all kinds of things are going to get into that. It's going to get really, really bad if we continue this way. Because currently, when what the so-called civil society, I'll just go back to, there needs to be an intellectual revolution in Nigeria, a very, very localized one. Not all these open society funded or whatever,
No,
when
no, no.
when it's just about democracy, election reform, blah blah blah. Like all these things, like the economist Lance Pritchard puts it, it's a drain on brains. He's not. He said he's not worried about brain drain. He's worried about drain on brains, like forcing people to think about problems that is completely irrelevant to them. I think Charlie mentioned. Charlie also mentioned in the episode we did that. Oh, I mean, you're worried about something that is not the primary concern of a population. Like you worry about your own problems, right? You know, part of it is I was thinking when I was writing the piece today is the new thing in 2022, 2023, where we were talking about the elections. It was dead all about electronic transmission of results as the thing that was going to make all the difference. And we all saw how that went. Now it's all about burden of proof. They found another talking point. Oh, just shift the burden of proof to INEC, and the law is going to force them to bring all the election materials to court. I was like, don't you guys get tired of all this dumb stuff? Okay, what if INEC brings fake documentations to court? Then what are
What
you
are you
going
going
to
to do
do?
about it?
You
They've
go
made the burden
explain
of proof.
tire now. You know, you know, like, because we do not even understand that what is an election. And there's a lot of mission creep in all we pass an electoral law and we expect INEC to do everything end to end. INEC will enforce the electoral law. INEC will stop election violence. INEC will stop election fraud and vote buying. INEC will screen the candidates. INEC will handles the logistics of the elections. And you just wonder that really who are the people that are actually thinking and designing processes in Nigeria? We don't have. We don't. And we just really, really, at the basic fundamental cognitive level, a lot of our problems need to be rethought, reframed, and the demands then channeled coherently, and then make people in government pay attention. It's just not in the psychology of governance in Nigeria. A lot of these things we want. I was watching Yemi Adamaleko being malhandled by Man O' War.
Yeah, security guy. Yeah.
And what I thought was that those guys, yes, they deserve to be castigated, but you would be surprised that in their psychology, the idea of eulogizing that event, the idea of bringing flowers or a wreath to symbolic place where something terrible happened, it just does not occur in their
It
brains.
doesn't register at all. It doesn't register.
It makes no sense. To them, you are just a troublemaker because, like, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
it's an act of aggression. That's what they consider. It cannot. There's no part of their brain that says actually, okay, this is a solemn thing that people do, to
So,
commemorate something or to mark something. No.
so as a country at every level, we have no concept of a good society. We have no concept of personhood until it happens to you personally. A death is just a death. Is just it happened or somebody you know. I'm working on a piece, personhood and development, and you kind of just see how, as nations grow and become, obviously, some countries in the world today have advanced to the point where it's not just human lives, but dogs, cats have some kind of rights, right? And, while some of it might be funny and amusing, but it is admirable when you look at the ladder of human flourishing. The fact that you can have abundance, both cognitively and materially, to then think of that as part of the things. Owning a pet is something that improves your quality of life. It's a stage of development, right? And these are just things that don't make sense to us in Nigeria. Even a human death is just, whatever, right?
Anyway, on that cherry note, we'll leave it here. We'll leave it there for now, and then yeah, we'll. This is an ongoing conversation, and obviously we can never finish talking about it in one night. But anyway, hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and I will speak to you guys soon in a couple of weeks again. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tobi. See you later.
Thanks, Feyi. Later.